Hello and welcome back to another Rush Duel Links video. Today we just had some brand new news drop with the start of the Imi and Mimi unlock event, which has told us when we're getting the new box, all of the contents of the new box, as well as some confirmation on some of the skills, as well as a new bundle. So in this video, we're going to go over all of that. So first things first, we'll check out the new bundle we're getting, and this is the Abyss Soldier bundle. Now we did predict that we could get this. It was either going to be this or Tomatosaurs that we were hoping to get because Aqua really needed something to allow them to beat set 3. And Abyss Soldier is that thing, but it is still a legend card, which means we're still only going to have one copy of this, which could be a little bit tricky. But we do now have ways to put this back into our deck and then draw into it again, which we'll go over when we get to the box. But this card is still really powerful. 1800, 1300, decent stat line for level 4. We can send one water attribute monster from our hand to the graveyard to return one card from the field to the hand. Now this card is really versatile because we can get rid of an opponent's boss monster. If it's an extra deck card, then it just goes back to the extra deck, which is fantastic. We just get rid of it permanently. We can get rid of a back row if our opponent has lots of back row and we just want to try and clear the way. We can get rid of face down monsters, which again, this is how we're going to beat set 3. But we can also use this on our own cards. So we could, for example, summon out a monster, use its effect, then use Abyss Soldier, put that back in our hand, resummon it again, and then use its effect again, which can be really clutch in some situations. So Abyss Soldier, absolutely fantastic legend monster. But we also got some confirmation on some of the skills, and the big one is going to be Super Dimensional Fighter Launch. So this skill was a bit vague when it was leaked, but now we do know that this does add 3 Vic Viper full customs to your extra deck. So Vic Viper full custom is not going to be a card in the box. If we want to play this card, we have to be using this skill. And I think the primary reason for that is that they didn't want just anyone to be able to just slot some Gradius cards in their deck and have easy access to this card because the boss monster is reasonably strong. So just to quickly go over what the boss monster does, this is a contact fusion made using Gradius and 2 copies of Gradius's option. It has 3200 attack, 800 defense, and is level 4. And obviously that's pretty interesting, being a level 4 high attack monster. This card cannot be destroyed by card effects and it inflicts piercing battle damage. So this card is really good. Obviously not being able to destroy by card effects is going to be super relevant, but that piercing is going to be good and 3200 attack is really good. But the only real weakness this card has is the 800 defense, so if it gets changed to defense and pierced over by something like a Charmy, it can be quite painful. But now let's go and take a look at the box, the Distant Neos Space. So as the name suggests, this is going to be a Neos box. Elemental Hero Neos is finally in the game. Neos, there's nothing too special about this card individually. It's a level 7 normal monster, so we can summon it using Secret Order, which is pretty cool. But outside of that, we're just going to be using this as material to make our contact fusions, which is decent enough on its own. So we'll also be getting Vic Viper Ripple Laser, another contact fusion made using Gradius and Gradius's option. So we can send the top 2 cards of the deck to the graveyard, which again, milling is fantastic. Then we can make up to 2 face-up monsters on your opponent's field with 800 attack until the end of the turn. So this is a pretty strong effect. It's nothing super crazy, but 800 is still a significant amount. It does mean that we can attack over 3200s, which means this will actually be a really good way to beat full custom. Then we have a card that I actually didn't predict we were going to get, Blue Fang Concurrent Burst Dragon. So this is made using Blue Fang Burst Dragon and Booster Wyvern, and once again is a contact fusion. So this is obviously the contact fusion box more than anything else. But we can send one card from our hand to the graveyard. This turn it gains 1500 attack, but cannot attack directly, so it goes up to 4500. Okay, that's an okay effect, especially since we're getting this out relatively easily. But then, if you send a level 7 or higher dragon type monster to the graveyard to meet the requirement, this card can make up to 2 attacks on monsters. So that's pretty good, right? If we go up to like 4500 and we get 2 attacks on monsters, we could clear 2 threats, or we could get a significant amount of damage in. If we find a way to give this thing piercing as well, that could be absolutely disgusting. But we are still going to have to get out the Blue Fang, we're going to be sending it back into a deck, and then in order to get the double attack, we are going to have to be discarding another level 7 from our hand, which we might not have access to. And the last UR of the box is going to be Imi and Mimi's boss monster, Diankito the Cure Prodigy. If you have a face-up field spell card on your field, draw 1 card and show it, then if that card is a field spell, gain 1000. So this is basically, if we have the field spell, we get to draw a card. The 1000 life isn't going to come up very often. It will sometimes, but I think most lists will probably only be playing the 1 field spell if we're able to search it, which we will be able to do with the better of the Aqua skills, so theoretically we'll only be on the 1 anyway, we might be on 2, depending on how things shake out. But this card is okay. And like we were saying, with the release of Abyss Soldier, the Aqua deck actually does seem a lot stronger than it otherwise would have been. I don't think it's necessarily going to be a particularly strong deck, because again, Abyss Soldier on its own won't necessarily just carry the deck. but there is a chance. So moving on to the SRs, we have Super Dimensional Lord British Space Fighter, and this card is fantastic. So we can send the top card of it to the graveyard. Again, milling is always good. This turn, this card's name becomes Gradius. Then you can special summon a Gradius' option from your graveyard face up to your field. This turn, you can only attack with machine-type monsters that have 800 original defense. Now, obviously, if we have a Gradius option in the graveyard, well, we can bring it back, and then we can immediately contact fuse into Vic Viper Ripple Laser, and if we have a second Gradius option, we can even go into full custom. So this is a really strong card, because effectively this is an entire contact fusion on its own, as long as the graveyard's set up. Then we have Power Capsule Red, which lets us excavate the top 4 cards of our deck. Then we can add an excavated Gradius and or one light attribute machine type effect monster with 800 defense to your hand. So because we're going to have 6 different cards in the game that are going to meet this requirement, and one of them is limit 2, that means we're going to have a total of 17 cards in our deck that will be eligible for this effect. So there's a good chance this is going to work, especially when you consider we're playing a 30 card deck instead of a 40 card deck. It means that this card will be live a lot of the time. We will oftentimes get something out of it, but very occasionally you will find yourself in a situation where you excavate the top 4, find nothing, put them on the bottom, and you've just lost this card for basically no gain, and those times this will really suck, but those situations shouldn't come up very often. Next up, we have Curse of the Rising Light getting a reprint inside of this box. Now this is really cool, because I think a lot of people really want this card. A lot of people have told me that they can't really play joint text, they don't have access to Curse of the Rising Light, because this was selection box exclusive, but now that it's in here, I mean, that's a good thing. It does kind of suck for people that went into the selection boxes to try and get a lot of value out of it, but I think we have gotten plenty of value from it because this card has been pretty decent basically since it came out. So realistically, I think this getting a reprint is a net positive for pretty much everyone. Next up, we have Elemental Hero Heat Neos, and Heat Neos is probably the least interesting of the Neos fusions, but it's made using Neos and Flare Scarab, with Contact Fusion of course. Send the top 2 cards of your deck to graveyard, again milling is good, and this card gains attack equal to the number of cards on the field times 200 until the end of this turn. This is both your cards and your opponent's cards, so this card can gain a decent amount of attack, but just gaining attack is a little bit one-dimensional. Sometimes this will be exactly what you need to clear an enemy boss, or to just close out a game, but more often than not, you're going to rather go into the other new boss monster we're getting, Elemental Hero Pulse Neo. So this is made using Neos and Aqua Dolphin, once again Contact Fusion, and the effect is that we can destroy one face-up level 9 or lower monster on your opponent's field. So just unconditional, as long as it's a face-up level 9 or lower, we get to pop it. Now obviously we can't pop face-downs, that's kind of the weakness of this, and we can't pop maximums or like very, very powerful level 10 fusions, but outside of that, this is just a unconditional get rid of your opponent's monster, which is so good. Next up, we have Hero Descent. So we can special summon up to 2 monsters whose total levels equal 7 or lower among the monsters in your graveyard that are Neospatian Aqua Dolphin, Neospatian Flare Scarab, or warrior type normal monsters to your field in face up defense position that then locks us into only attacking with warriors. But this card is okay. So we could use this to get back a couple of elemental heroes, we could use this to get back Neos, we could use this to get back a couple of our Neospatians, or we could get like a Neospatian and a low level hero. There is a lot of stuff we can do with this, but this card is actually pretty important because we can get it back with our new Neo skill, Contact Draw. So we can send up to 2 elemental hero Neos and or Neospatian Aqua Dolphin or Flare Scarab from hand to the graveyard to draw that many cards. So this is very similar to the Light Galaxy skill, for example. And then if we have Elemental Hero Neos in our graveyard, we can also add Hero Descent from your graveyard to your hand once per duel. So this isn't the craziest skill in the world. Realistically, we can dig through our deck, we can filter through and find what we need. And if we do have both Neos and Hero Descent in the graveyard, we can get once per duel Hero Descent back. It's nothing insane, but it is relevant. And then we have another card I really didn't expect to get, and this is Overrush Storm, which is limit 3. So place 2 monsters from your graveyard on the bottom of the deck in any order, then place 1 spell/trap card from your opponent's field on the bottom of the owner's deck. So this is interesting because this does put cards back into our deck. This is now a generic way that basically anyone that's not playing limit 3s can take cards from their graveyard and put them back into their deck, which prevents deck out, which allows you to reuse cards. Now it does put them on the bottom of the deck, so we are going to have to shuffle it if we want to be reusing them, or just having a lot of deep draw, but it is something. But this card is really interesting to come out now, because this card typically sees play in the OCG to act as a countermeasure to when people have cards that protect their back row from being destroyed, because that is quite common in the OCG. There are a lot of cards that say your face down spell traps cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. The Overrush Storm gets around that by just getting rid of it, right? We just put it to the bottom of their own deck. So we don't really have any of those protection effects yet, which means Overrush Storm I think is more often than not going to be used for the recovery effect, to refill our deck, to reuse monsters, And again, getting rid of your opponent's spell traps can still be really useful, and this might see play over Ghost Cyclone in some situations. Next up, we have Cornful Charity. So if you have a face-up Aqua-type monster on your field, and an Aqua-type monster in your graveyard, so again, we're going to have a pretty big Aqua pool to make this work, we can't just like splash a little engine. We can draw 2 cards, then place 1 card from your hand on the bottom of the deck. Now this card is not restricted, which is interesting. This card did, I think, eventually get a limit 2 in the OCG because of Berry Fresh, which we now know is going to be called Fresh Berry as the English localization. But this card is still pretty good. I don't think this is going to see as much play as like Elemental Circulation, because again, we do need to have an Aqua monster in our graveyard, we do need to have an Aqua monster on the field, whereas with the Elemental Hero package, you could just keep them in your hand and discard them, so it's a little bit easier to get off, as well as drawing 3, discarding 2 is a lot better than drawing 2 and then placing 1 on the bottom of the deck. But we can use this to again deep draw through our deck and find the combo pieces we need, such as that Abyss Soldier. So this card is still a really, really good card. I'm just not convinced Aqua is going to be really, really powerful even with it. And then speaking of Aqua, we have another boss monster in D and Keto the Food Prodigy. So if a spell/trap card is on the field, send 1 card from your hand to the graveyard, gain 1000 life points. So losing a card from your hand, not the best, gaining 1000 life points is fine. Then you can make this card gain attack equal to the number of face-up spell cards on the field times 300 until the end of this turn. Now most of the time that will be 1 because you'll have a field spell. So be able to gain 300 attack, 2800 is okay, especially when you consider that we'll be gaining 200 from the field spell, which puts us up to 3000, and it reduces our opponent's monster's attack by 200, which means we can effectively attack over 31s and we can crash into 32s, which is not awful. It's not the best boss in the world, but it's fine. And then the last SR is Spectre of Heaven's End. And again, this is another card that we did predict we might be getting, and here it is. This card is really, really cool. Excavate the top 3 cards of your deck, send 1 excavated card to the graveyard, then shuffle the remaining cards in the deck. So this card did see a decent amount of play, especially in Seven's Wonder Fusion format, and it's basically really good at just turboing through your deck and specifically finding cards you want in the graveyard to set up future plays. So if there's any deck you have that can use from the graveyard, using things like Miracle Fusion, using things like Battle Ballet, or if you have any cards that just wants to have a certain number of cards in the graveyard, this card can be really, really good for that. Now in Duel Links, our skills do have restrictions, so we won't be able to play this in just about anything because this is a level 3 zombie with 1200 attack, so we're going to have to work under those restrictions, but it can be pretty good. And this card is especially good because we're getting other cards that work with it, which we'll go over when we get to them. Now onto the rares, and the first one, Vic Viper Beginning, which is limit 2. So we can pay 100 life points. This turn, this card's name becomes Gradius. Okay, really good. Then we can send up to 2 other monsters from your hand and or field to the graveyard. This can be really important because this can make room if we need it. You can special summon Gradius's option from your graveyard to your field in face-up defense position equal to the number of monsters sent to the graveyard by this effect. So I wouldn't say this is as strong as Lord British because that gets you a free plus. This card breaks even, but this does give you another way to easily make contact fusions, which is really, really good. And although this card is limit 2, there's nothing else limit 2 at the moment that you would want to play in this deck. So realistically, this is limit 2 because they only want you to use 2 copies of it. Or this could be foreshadowing. They're going to put something to limit 2 after the GRF maybe that this deck's going to want to play. So it's interesting that it's limit 2, but for now we're just going to assume Konami just wants you to only have 2 copies of this card. Next up, Vic Viper Spread Bomb. So we can send 1 other monster from your hand or field to the graveyard. Again, very important that we can make room on our field. This turn, this card's name becomes Gradius, okay? We have tons of cards that do this. Then we can destroy 1 spell trap on your opponent's field. Now this is actually a really, really cool effect because we don't have many of these low level monsters that can pop your opponent's back row yet. This is one of the first we're going to be having, which is really, really cool. Now we do have to discard a monster from our hand or field, which is a little bit of a steep cost because effectively we're turning that other monster into back row hate. But if we're able to, for example, summon out a monster, use its effect, then send it to the graveyard, we can get value off of the monster's effect that we summon, and then get value by sending it to the graveyard to pop an opponent's back row, which can be really, really good. But this also does have the restriction that this turn you can only attack with machine-type monsters that have 800 original defense. Next up, we have Multiple. So this card's name becomes Gradius' option while in the hand or graveyard. Again, absolutely fantastic because we have a couple of cards now that can bring back Gradius' option from the graveyard, so this being in the graveyard is very important. We can send the top card of the deck to the graveyard. Again, milling is fantastic. This turn, this card's name becomes Gradius' option, so it's Gradius' option no matter where it is. Then, if you have a face-up monster on your field whose original name is Lord British Salamander, which we now know its localized name is Super Dimensional Lord British Space Fighter, we can change the battle position of 1 monster on the opponent's field. So this is, again, really, really strong, because we could summon out Super Dimensional Lord British Space Fighter, use its effect to bring back the multiples effect to change our opponent's monsters face up from face down. Then we can contact fuse them into Vic Viper Ripple Laser and reduce the attack of the monster that we've just flipped up and attack over it for potentially up to 2500 direct damage, which is really, really good. Next up, we have Gradius' option itself, so we can send the top card of a deck to the graveyard. This card gains attack equal to the original attack of one face-up level 4 light attribute machine-type monster on your field with 800 original defense until the end of your opponent's next turn. Now, very importantly, level 4 light attribute machine-type monster with 800 defense does mean basically every monster in this deck, including our contact fusion. So if we have a Ripple Laser on the field, we gain 2500 attack until the end of our opponent's next turn, which is really good. Or even better, if we do manage to get out the Vic Viper full custom, we can gain that 3200 attack until the end of our opponent's next turn, which is so, so good. Next up, we do have another card that we did predict we'd be getting, Enigmatic Princess of Eternal Heaven. So this is a contact fusion using Spectre of Heaven's Beginning and Spectre of Heaven's End. Continuous effect, this card can attack directly, and you take no battle damage from battles involving this card. So this is really nice. We can just slap it out in attack position. It doesn't matter if it gets pierced over and changes defense. It doesn't matter if it just gets attacked over by something massive. We won't take any damage, and we do get to attack our opponent directly for 1700, which can be a significant amount of damage. So this card, just generically really, really good, and any deck that can play both the Spectre of Heaven's Beginning and Spectre of Heaven's End should be playing this card because it's just really, really good. Next up, we have Fake Neos, and this is a card I wasn't sure we'd be getting because it's just really, really good, and this makes the Neos Fusion deck look a little bit stronger. But we can send the top 2 cards of the deck to the graveyard, again, really good. This card's name becomes Elemental Hero Neos this turn, which is so, so important because that means we can contact fuse very, very easily. We can just summon out Fake Neos, summon out any of our Neospatians, and then immediately contact fuse into one of our boss monsters with just 2 normal summons, which is really, really good. Then we have Neospatian Aqua Dolphin, so we can send 1 card from our hand to the graveyard, look at your opponent's hand, then 1 monster with an attack less than or equal to the attack of the monster face up with the highest attack on your field from it to the graveyard. Then if you send a monster to the graveyard with its effect, inflict 500 damage to your opponent. But this card will rarely get its effect off, I feel. This is typically an effect that doesn't get used a lot. I mean, you will if you just have spare cards in the hand, if your opponent has a lot of cards in their hand, for example. But this card typically is just used to go into the contact fusion. Now, we are also getting Curse of the Rising Light as a reprint, and Aqua Dolphin can reduce the number of cards in our opponent's hand, which can turn on Curse of the Rising Light. So there is some interesting tech you can do with this card. And then the last new rare we're getting is Kanan the Beautiful Sword Mistress, which is just a 1400 vanilla. I would assume we're going to get a lot more of these vanilla Aqua monsters as Imi and Mimi level up rewards. And then finally, we do have our ends. So Power Meter is a spell card for Gradius. Place 1 face-up monster from your field on the bottom of the owner's deck. Add 1 light attribute machine type monster with 800 defense from your graveyard to your hand. So this is a -1 effectively to do this, so it's not the best thing in the world. But again, if we do get something like Lord British, well then that will plus us anyway, so this kind of breaks even if you think about it like that. But then if you have Power Capsule Red in your graveyard, you can fusion summon a level 4 machine type monster with 800 defense by sending monsters from your hand and or field to the graveyard as material. And this can be really good to get that 3rd fusion monster out. Because if you think about it, we summon, let's say, 2 monsters, contact fuse them, we have a fusion monster. Now we have 2 open spots, summon, contact fuse them into a fusion monster. Well, now we can't contact fuse into that last spot because we need 2 monsters in the field, we only have 1 free space. So by using things like Power Meter, we can fill up that 3rd spot with another fusion monster, which can be really good. We can also use this to fuse face down monsters on our field, but that's not going to come up too often. I don't think your opponent is going to shady a lot of your lower level monsters. I think they're more likely to hold it until you get out your fusions. Next up, we have Hyperspeed. So fusion summon a level 4 machine type monster with 800 defense by sending monsters from your hand and or field to the graveyard. If Power Capsule Red is in your graveyard, the monster special summon gains 600 attack. So again, this card, not too crazy. Basically, it has some of the same benefits as Power Meter. So like, again, nothing super crazy. Gaining 600 attack is nice, but it's not anything that's substantial. Then we have Gradius itself. This is just a N card, 1200, 800. I mean, you'll play this because you effectively need to have the skill work, but also you'll play this just because extra Gradius names is really, really good. Then we have Neospatian Flare Scarab. Continuous effect, this card gains attack equal to the number of spell traps on your opponent's field times 400. So realistically, this thing's going to be getting anywhere between 800 and 1200. Occasionally, it will gain 16 if your opponent has a field spell and 3 back row, which can be substantial, but for the most part, we're just going to be summoning this out, and we are going to be using it as contact fusion. Then we have Spectre of Heaven's Beginning, and this card is so good because, again, of the contact fusion and the fact we're getting End. But during the turn that you normal summon this card, special summon a zombie monster with 1200 attack and 0 defense in face-up defense position on your field. So this is fantastic, because this means we can summon a second copy of itself, and then just use them as tribute fodder, for example, or we can bring back Spectre of Heaven's End, and then contact fuse them immediately, or just use Heaven End's effect and then tribute it anyway. This is effectively like a new Seahorse Carrier type effect, where we're just getting extra bodies on the field, which can be really good, and we can use them in a lot of different ways, which is very versatile. But if we special summon Spectre of Heaven's End by this effect, you can also shuffle up to 2 cards from your opponent's graveyard into the deck. And again, this effect can be really strong. Think about it. Jointech wants to have a decent amount of cards in the graveyard. They want fuel for Jointech Rex effect. They want to have different bosses in the graveyard to grab back with Leo or grab back with the skill. Against Music Princess, they need to have 5 in graveyard to use their ballet. They need to have 5 to shuffle back to use Straight Pierce. And ballet is specifically going to want specific monsters in the graveyard to be fused together. So again, we can just mess with our opponent's graveyard, which is so good. This card is really strong, and I think the only reason this card wouldn't see play is if the skills are too restrictive and we physically can't play it, or we just don't have room in the deck to have this entire kind of Heavens package. Next up, we have Mystical Sandbox, 1200 vanilla, water aqua, not really much to say about it. Then we have Master's Cure. This is another card we did predict we would be getting, but when your opponent normal or special summons a level 7 or higher monster face up, gain 1000, then you can make a face up Aqua monster on your field, gain 1000 attack. It's nothing crazy. I doubt this card would see play out of some interesting like Stooly brews, but you never know. And then finally, D and Keto the Cure Master, just gain 1000 life points. So nothing super crazy, but again, if we want to just keep gaining lots of life points, this is another option. And we'll very quickly touch on the drop rewards from Imi and Mimi as well. We do have Nuvia the Mischievous. This card is okay. It can give your guys a tiny attack boost and get back our field spell from the graveyard, which can be okay. Then we have the field spell itself. Again, for the most part, I think most people are going to be running a single copy of this card, but it doesn't hurt to have more. You can activate this card if you have 2 or more face-up Aqua monsters on the field. While this card is face-up in the field zone, face-up Aqua monsters gain 200, and non-Aquas lose 200. That's effectively a 400 boost against anything that's not Aqua, which is really good. And then finally, we do have just another vanilla, and this is just a 1400 defense vanilla, nothing particularly exciting about it. And then just because we've covered literally everything else, we might as well go over the last new card we're going to be getting, and this is Freed the Brave Wanderer. So this is a ranked reward, which means you can go and get this right now. Place 2 light attribute monsters from your graveyard to the bottom of your deck in any order. Destroy 1 face-up monster on the field with higher attack than this card. This card did see an okay amount of play in the OCG, but that is it for all of the brand new stuff. I think realistically, some of the cards in this box do seem very strong. I think that there is a good chance that the Neos deck is at least somewhat competitive, but I really do think the Gradius stuff has a really good shot. Now, the issue the Gradius deck has, again, is the skill is effectively a nothing skill. The skill doesn't plus us, we don't gain attack, we're not filtering, we're not gaining any consistency, we're not increasing our ceiling. All we're doing is adding Vic Viper full custom to our extra deck, which is fine, but it's not a good skill. This is effectively a nothing skill. Now, this doesn't have any specific deck building restrictions, so there is maybe something we can do with it there, but for the most part, it does seem a little bit lackluster. But the card quality of the Gradius cards might just be good enough that the deck is really strong anyway. I do think that out of all of these decks, for me personally, the Gradius deck is going to be the one to watch. It does seem to me on paper to be the most powerful, even without a skill, and that's because those cards have only just come out in the OCG a few days ago, so these are kind of modern power level cards. But let me know what you think about the box in the comments below. Which cards do you think look really cool? What are you upset we didn't get? I would love to hear all of your opinions. But thanks for watching the video, and I'll see you next time.